If you own a KTM 350 or 500 EXC-F and you're trying to remove the exhaust end cap and it's stuck, then this is one trick to get that thing out of there. Now, the issue that most people have with these bikes is that KTM engineered a high-performance off-road engine, and then it bottled up the intake and exhaust so that it could make it 50-state legal for on-highway use. What most people want to do is unleash the power of these motorcycles, and what you have to do is open up the airflow within the engine, and you have to change out the ECU to accommodate for that increased airflow. The first thing that you need to do is you need to open up the exhaust. Now, certainly you can just get an aftermarket slip-on like an FMF and you're good to go, but some people opt to go with the cheaper option, which is to remove the old stock end cap and put in an aftermarket one like this. If you look on the forums, you'll find accounts of these stock end caps being a complete breeze to get out. You remove the bolts, you slip them out, new end cap on, good to go. But you'll come across people who have a lot of trouble getting that stock end cap out of there. Occasionally, you'll come across one like this one where that end cap would not come out. Now, if you look at the stock exhaust system on these bikes, you can tell that the end cap is meant to come off because there's a regular service interval for these mufflers. They should be repacked every so often. And if you look at the can, you can see that there's Torx bolts on the end, but there's rivets on the front of the can. And this tells you that this end cap was meant to come off. This is the stock end cap off of this 2024 500 EXC-F. I thought it was going to be relatively easy to get this thing out of here. I took all the bolts off. I started to tap on it with a hammer. It loosened up about 1/2 inch, and once it got there, it would not budge. And once I realized that this thing was stuck in there, and as hard as I whacked on it with a hammer, it was not going to budge, I needed to come up with a different solution. The issue with these stock end caps that come off of the EXC-F models is that the spark arrestor unit here has this crimped and welded section on the end, and this inserts into a steel housing that's built into the can. Now, when these things are pressed together, that housing on the inside will get kinked or bent, and it will essentially lock this thing in. As hard as you want to whack on this thing with a hammer, there's no way that this end cap is coming out. But I figured out a way to get them out without damaging the can. I'll caveat this by saying that if you do this trick, you're going to basically destroy this end cap. But in my opinion, these things are heavy and junky and they ruin the power of the bike, so good riddance. All right, now here's my trick for getting this stuck end cap out of there. And it starts with this mangled piece of metal. Now, this is not the way that this is supposed to look on the bike, but this is how it looks after I got done with it. First thing you do is this is the metal screen that covers the exhaust outflow here. Now, the first thing you want to do is get a punch and a hammer and punch a hole into this thing, and then make the hole big enough that you can get a pair of pliers in there and pry this sucker out. Now, this screen, once you're done with it, it's destroyed. You may as well throw it in the garbage. But now, what you have is an open exhaust port at the end here. Now, the trick that finally worked for me, after I slammed it with a hammer, tugged on it with a rope, almost destroyed the can trying to get it out of there, this. This is a basic wood clamp. You can get it at any hardware store. And what you do is, once you get the screen out of the exhaust port, you take the wood clamp, insert it like this, clamp it down so it's snug, and now you've got a lever arm to tug on this thing. And this allowed me to apply pressure up and down until it would finally come out. Now, remember, if you look at this thing, I dinged it up and dented it up and marred it up. It's done, but that's fine because this thing's going in the garbage. I didn't want it anyway. Finally, with enough pressure, this unit was able to get it out. I was able to get this nice aftermarket end cap on. And with opening up the intake and reflashing the ECU, this thing runs like a dream. I hope this helps. I know that a lot of people get these things and they get stuck and they get really frustrated, and all they want to do is get their bike running really nice. So if you come up against one of these things that won't come out, just get a basic wood clamp, pop that screen out, stick the wood clamp in there and pry it out. I guarantee it'll work great. It won't damage the outer can. This aftermarket unit fit in there perfectly and the bike runs like a dream. Let's hear this thing run. Thanks for following along. I hope this helps. Maybe this gets one of those end caps that you're struggling with unstuck. You can get this bike running the way you want it to.